And we're live. We're going to go through introverted sensing. So this is the model G of INTJ, I.L.I rather. And I'm going to show you what it looks like in human form. So this guy on, if you want to read that, I think this guy, pretty strong SI user.
Honestly, I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong, but the first thing I think of when I see this picture is SJ. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be stereotypical. I think it's his expression too. I'm glad you find that funny, Ben.
He'd make an NP a great husband. Right.
Okay, let me read this.
Okay.
You want me to read it out loud?
Yeah, go on then.
Okay, I live by the beach in Ibiza, and local tourists are not always known for their beach etiquette and tidiness. Once a week, I head to the local beach to pick up litter/trash that people have left there. The wind has blown there, or the waves have washed ashore. There's quite a lot of litter, and it used to give me a rather sore back after a litter picking session. I'm sorry. After buying the combi reacher, I no longer had to bend down and pick. I'm so sorry. I would never buy something like this.
I would never.
At least not yet. Maybe when you're about 70.
That's fair. That's fair. However, he looks quite 70. Okay, anyway, the stick is lightweight, easy to use, very precise. So locals look at me like I'm bonkers. Yeah. Brit abroad. Is that okay?
Yeah, a British person aboard.
Ah, okay. The only drawback is Amazon now suggests items such as incontinence pads and mobility aids. But I'm sure, okay, I can't see the bottom because it's covered by...
Okay, yeah, but I'm sure I'll be glad of these in time too.
Okay.
Right, so this is sort of like the stereotype of introverted sensing in socionics, that it's all about cleanliness and attention to aesthetics. Aesthetics in this, I suppose it's in maybe a negative sense of where if it's something that's like an eyesore, I suppose the SPs will not be as much. I mean, because they like nice looking things as well, and lots of people of different types do. But I would think with the SJs, they can, and the SI DOMs, they can be particularly irked by just a little thing that annoys them, and then they put so much effort in just to remove that little thing that is offensive to my eyes, as they might say. Obnoxious to my eyes, that's the phrase. Yeah, and so that's probably SI DOM, SJ. And another example, this is a character from an episode, and this guy, Jeff, because Jeff was to give me an example of an SJ villain, and they asked him what his nickname was, and he said, "They call me Mr. Clean," and he was really proud of his nickname. Right then, so it does exist, and so any NP women out there watching this, and you don't like doing housework, these SJ men do exist. You see, the bet they're not looking so boring now. Right. So we are talking about actually, just to simplify things. So this is the simplified version of the Model G for INTJ, and we went over this with the Dario Nardi in 2015, and so we've done this one, the lead function, which is it's long range, it's got lots of energy, it can get self-indulged. The TI, which is basically, it's not valued in itself, but it's used in aid of I would say, other functions, or at least things that are associated with other functions. So, for example, business logic is associated with extroverted thinking, and so INTJ resemblers, I.L.Is, might use a TI, some TI in service of these other things. They're not just going to learn a theory and do subjective thinking for its own sake. Maybe the same with FI as well. Maybe if they want to sort of do some research on some values and try and get the values coherent. So on this one, the role position, the SI, yeah, it strengthens with maturity, and it's the other side of the first function. The first function is a certain Galenko temperament, what I call mindset, to sort of separate it from the Kersey temperament, and that is, these are the temperaments. And there's one is, you know, I mentioned before we started about the INTPs sometimes put things in where it's mostly true, but they'll put other things in just to be symmetrical. And so some of these, now I love the bias by Victor, the anti-SE bias. The kinesthetic is like going out and getting yourself injured through doing dangerous stuff that you shouldn't be doing anyway. It's like, that's a really loaded image, right? And so we've got ones here. This is I_p, receptive adaptive. So the IJ is in the MBTI code. Lazy and grumpy, and it's but smooth and adaptive at their best. But again, that's not something that works brilliantly. And within this, don't include Kersey ISTJ. Think of S.L.I for this one, which is different from Kersey ISTJ. And also this thing about lazy, maybe internally, but from the outside, you might not see that. So with NIFX and SIFX, because they're attending to others, and maybe they'll show energy towards them. These people on the outside might get a different view of them. So I'll ask Sana about that. She's an IEI resembler. So do you think you are slightly different? Do you think other people see, when you're in company with somebody, are you in a different mode than when you're on your own? Do you think you're less energy when you're on your own, or?
You mean in SI sense?
Yeah, in an SI sense, but also in an energy sense of, because Victor here has the NI and SI DOMs as lazy in quotation marks, and I just wondered if that will show differently between an internal experience and then when people are around them. So, for example, when people are around an IEI resembler, they might think, oh, they've got energy for me because they're giving me the FE or giving me attention. And in the case of S.L.I and I.L.I, NITX, it might be because they're very productive with the little energy that they do have, that they don't look lazy based on their actions.
Well, I don't think I have a lot of energy, regardless of whether I'm alone or with other people. Like physically
Yeah.
speaking, I'm not gonna be, you know, energetic. I don't know if there is much of a difference. I do kind of feel like more of a pressure to do SI stuff with other people around that I don't necessarily feel on my own.
Right. Yeah, so I'll slightly digress here, but what we're saying here is that there's similarities here between the NI and the SI, and I suppose it's, and that's just the downside of it, the lazy part. The other part is like adaptive, smooth, see how things are going.
Well, I mean, just to give my 2 cents, as far as the lazy bit, I often view my days as if I only have so much time to accomplish things, but and I'm sure everyone is like this, wishing they had more time during the day, but I feel that I have to often pull myself out of my mind to force myself to physically do things, because I'm constantly thinking of how it's going to go, how I should plan it, what I should do, that I can get lost in this circle and waste time. And someone who can't read my mind, obviously, who's just sitting there staring at me, they're going to be like, why are you so lazy? Why are you just sitting there? And yeah, so it really depends on, like if I'm alone by myself, like I said, I really have to force myself to do stuff and pull myself out of my head. I really don't go out and spend a lot of time around people. I guess one of the main places that I do go out, I'd be like at the gym. And so I'm there to do stuff. I mean, I am lost in my mind, but I guess I've done my workout so many times I don't have to think much about it, and I'm just go, 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 but still lost in my head at the same time. So I probably wouldn't seem lazy so much there. But yeah, I can see how an NI-DOM can look lazy to someone, especially someone who is like maybe an ENTJ, or someone who's just like go, go, go all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, physically, I think physically lazy makes sense, because you're not going to be able to see what they're thinking about, and they're probably thinking about a lot. When it comes to physical stuff, I kind of work on impulse. So either I have an impulse to do something and then I have to do it right now, or I forget about it and then that thing doesn't get done until I have an impulse again.
an impulse of TE, a twinge of TE. I better get that thing done.
Well, it's not about, well, is it TE if it's not about, planning, or it's just doing? I think it's more essay, honestly.
Yeah, I think maybe it depends on what it is. Like, I better do that thing. It's a productive thing, and I better get it done.
Yeah, well, let's say housework.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a combo of different things. So, for example, we're getting a little bit off track here, but this is an example of how the functions can work together. And that is SEI, and that corresponds well to Kurz's ISFJ. And you could think, okay, if they're TE break, and they're these so-called lazy so-and-sos, but they've got a couple of reasons for wanting to make their house look nice, or doing other SI things. Especially if they're in a career that's helping people. Well, first, they want to make sure they do a good job helping people. But first of all, the mess is going to get on their nerves, which is an SI thing. And then also, if people come around and visit, they want to give a good impression to other people. And so SEI might be the kind of person where they do not want surprise visitors. They want to make sure the house is in spotless shape before anyone comes around. Hailey, do you have a ISTJ sister? Is she a bit like that?
I really don't know. I would say she's definitely an SJ, but yeah. I know she's my sister and I should know her, but we were never close, and I have had a really hard time. However, it's so weird. I mean, I feel like I'm not terrible at just looking at functions and trying to, apply functions to someone and their behavior and personality, but she is just very interesting to me. Sometimes I'm like, wow, that's really SP, and sometimes I'm like, that's just like ridiculously SJ. I mean, just order following, just. I mean, not to make it sound negative, and kind of jumping to a different subject here, the whole lazy and grumpy thing. In regard to the grumpy thing, I think that I can definitely come across as grumpy just because I'm very critical, and I'm not trying to be mean or grumpy. It's just I'm a very critical person by nature, and I think that turns a lot of people off, and they just think I'm this negative, grumpy person.
Yeah, but I would also think, though, in your particular field, you have a lot to be grumpy about. I mean, if
that's fair,
that is fair.
But most people don't view it that way. Because, they don't look to see what the problems are. and they think everything's fine. And two, they're too lazy to look and see what the problems are.
Yeah, but there's also
See,
a lot.
I'm being really critical.
But there's also a lot of values and ethics that come through, and this is like the heart of, in your case, of like an INTJ Resembler, where it's like you get angry with these, like the national, what is it, NASM, National Academy of Sports Medicine, because it's like, and are you also thinking about those poor people that have been misled and given all this bad advice and spent all this money?
Yes, I am, but at the same time, I don't feel bad for them if they're being screwed over, because I mean, just like I did it, they can go out and seek out the correct information. So I do feel bad for them, because I realize that, you know, people have their lives and they're busy, and a lot of people don't have time for it. But I'm like, you know, if you want to pursue something and you love it enough to pursue it and give it time, I mean, just give it 30 minutes a day. Look up some, like, find out who the credible people are, and just learn enough to know who's full of crap and who's not. So when someone's trying to tell you what to do, you can pick up easier whether or not they're full of crap or whether or not they're credible.
Yeah, and that's really hard for SJs to do that. And it's like Jeff says that the SJs are asking themselves the question, who's the authority on this? It's like they want to know. And that's the problem, is that in your eyes, the authorities, they don't know what they're talking about. And well, the respect, but or what you would say, no, these authorities don't know what they're talking about, but these people who I give the authority to do know that what they're talking about. So it's picking the right authorities. Anyway, we're getting a little bit off track, but yeah, it's all SI stuff. So we are going to, and again, there's that video I mentioned with Dario where we go through that diagram. And if you want to know more about the charges, there's that one. That can be found if you use the search box. So this is now we're going to talk about the position. So this is the first one where we get into the social adaptation block. So this is in contrast to the first block, where that is like your preferred mode. So you know, you said there, Hailey, where you like to be in your head. And you're in your head and you're thinking about stuff and you're just noodling theories around and around. Do you think it's fair to say that like you're in an NI and a TI mode of like what and it's like swirling around and you're doing your thinky thing, and that's how you would prefer to be? Either that or the TE stuff, getting stuff done?
Well, the thing is that I'm not actively thinking of like random theories just for the hell of it, just because I enjoy it. It has to be something that I like a goal of mine, something that I want to accomplish.
Yeah.
So, but leaving me alone to do that, like to pursue a goal and to think about, you know, what can I do to help get me there? Yeah, that's what I prefer. And that's what I'm saying about being lost in my head, thinking about how can I get there, and I have to pull myself out of this to physically enact things.
Right. So the idea, and the reason I brought that up, folks, is that this is the preferred way of being. Sort of like the social mission is akin to the Kersey role variant. Now, the fact that Victor calls the I.L.I the critic is a little bit cheeky. It's like their preferred way of being is like being critical. So it's like when you've got a particular task in front of you that doesn't suit your natural way of being, your natural way of operating, and you have to go out of that, then this sort of models that sort of move out of one half of your introverted functions into your other half of introverted functions. And if we were talking about an extroverted type, we would be moving from one half of extroverted functions into their weaker extroverted functions. So in the case of Hailey, it's SI, and then it's going to be FI in the launcher position. And in the case of Sana, it's going to be SI role and TI launcher. Now, there's a separate thing when we get to the launcher function in future about that. And we'll talk about that. It's an energy thing and outside stimulus, but that's the next hangout. So we've got the role function here. So it has just enough energy to get the task solved. So this is put in a little bit of an awkward way, but I'll read this out for people on a mobile device. The function is at a minimum for the solution of the corresponding task level energy consumption. Thus, it is able to regularly solve repetitive simple tasks. Or in other words, NI DOMs have just enough energy for SI stuff to get by. Just enough. You're not totally enthusiastic about doing the SI stuff. It's a bit of a chore, but you can get through it. And then there's also an idea here that it needs to be continually improved. So, I mean, literally, Hailey literally does this with her whole body, but it's like training the SI. It has to be continually attended to. The function that is trained the way an athlete is trained by a coach or an actor is reversing his parts. Hence the usual name role function. Just like, and I'll ask you in a moment, Hailey, about how natural the SI stuff is to you in like your training and stuff, and so, like get an idea of how far away it is from your natural state. Just like an athlete needs to keep training to maintain his muscle mass, so the person needs to keep training this function or it will lose effectiveness. E.g., the LII, this is my case, needs to keep monitoring their own behavior to stop going into bad habits such as interrupting. In a dual relationship, the I.L.I's role FI is trained by the ESFJ's control FI. Yeah, and this is paired with the control function in the dual. I think there's a little bit here, yes. The functions of this unit provide stability in society. Without them, or rather without these, it is impossible to function normally if the mission is not performed for any reason. So, if Hailey did not have the SI and the FI, what would you do? It's like how to get outside of your head and get stuff. You sort of like, you need it in order to get out of yourself. So this is all a bit vague so far. I'll get to the bullet points to sort of make things a little bit clearer. These are the bullet points. And I'll first go over how he defines SI. Because I've got it. I've got the short definition. All right, here we go. Responsible for practical care of bodily needs, such as rest, nourishment, clothing, shelter, etc. So, how do you both think you do in that department, in this kind of SI?
I do okay, but by the standards of anyone that values SI, probably not.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Clean might.
Yeah,
not where Mr. Clean is.
Mr. Clean can come and do it himself if he doesn't. That's kind of my attitude. It's like I do it, and I do it like the minimum I have to. And if anyone complains about it, they can do it themselves. I'm not gonna listen to the complaints.
So by comparison, I don't know if you've known any FINX, and so EII and when I say EII resemblers in real life. I just wondered if you've been able to compare their ability in the SI department.
I'm not sure. I'm still contemplating whether my mom was one, but I haven't decided. Right.
So Hailey, what do you think about that one there? I know it's bad to say, "Oh, you're okay in that department." Of course, man. I'm a hygienic person. Of course, I'm okay in that department.
Well, I think this is interesting. If we look at this, if I'm answering the question based on this definition, responsible for practical care of bodily needs such as rest, nourishment, clothing, shelter. I feel like to an outside observer, I look put together, but my motivations aren't attaining rest, nourishment, and these things because I think that like, oh, I need these things to be healthy. And I know that I do, but I feel like my core motivations, like for example, looking a certain way is maybe more of my primary like one-to-one sexual instinct rather than needing to do it to be healthy. And And I have had trouble in the past with eating enough. And I feel like really this is mostly because I just get busy and lost with what I'm doing. And I remember, oh, I think I'm hungry. I should probably eat now. And then as I've been working on my fitness goals, I have to eat in order to attain my goals. And it, like, I've gotten a lot better at it as I've gotten older, but it used to be kind of bad. And I realized that I maybe wasn't eating enough.
I have had the same.
Right. There's a thing in NLP about they call it associated, where you're completely in your body. And do both of you sometimes feel like you're disassociated from your body?
Yes.
No, but I'm never completely in it either.
Oh. What is it like for you, Hailey? Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, Hailey, if you say what it's like for you, then Sana can compare.
Okay. Well, it's hard to explain. It's almost like when you are imagining something, and I would imagine that for an INFJ, an NIDOM, but more an FE, they're thinking of different things. But when I'm, like, for example, thinking of how one theory might fit together, or like how I might piece something I read together, and like I'm getting lost, and I'm literally seeing this picture in my mind, and it's as if I don't even exist in this physical world anymore. I can't feel my body, like I'm not aware of anything, and I can drown out sounds, I can drown out many things. And I feel like this has really helped me just growing up, because in my childhood home there were a lot of noises, and I often just could drown them out very easily. But it's like my senses almost go numb while I'm in this just state of thinking so deeply. And my family used to actually make fun of me for this. We'd all be sitting around the kitchen and they'd be talking, and, you know, of course I'd just be drowning out the sound because I'm thinking of whatever I'm thinking of. And I mean, all of a sudden I would snap out of it and realize that they're not talking anymore. They're all staring at me, like laughing. They just thought it was funny. And they used to like just be like, oh, well, Hailey's just lost in her head again. And I mean, I'm just like, I'm sorry. That's what happens. But it's like all my senses almost go numb and I snap out of it. And it's crazy.
Dan, how do you compare to that? Does that ring a bell for you?
I definitely zone out. I don't necessarily I don't connect it with the body, or like I mean, I suppose I do the same. It's just that I never thought about it from the point of view of the body. It's just thinking. But yeah, so, I zone out.
So sometimes there are some NLP concepts that sort of like put things in a way that makes things clearer. So it's got here for dissociated, not in an experience, seeing or hearing it from the outside. And so it's like the extroverted sensing thing of like, because NLP was created by a couple of smart SPs, where so they really value being fully in the moment and taking everything in, so that you can react to it with skill.
Yeah, I don't do that.
However, though, a little bit of a digression, but do you think that at least for you, Sana, that the FE part of the emotions of the other person, it will drag you into the present of at least the emotions of the other person?
Oh yeah, definitely. If I'm interacting with someone, yeah. It's just not going to be about the physical reality. It's going to be about the mental, psychological, emotional state of somebody.
Right. So if you maybe meet, say, an NIDOM like Hailey, NITX, or an NIDOM like Sana, NIFX, because of Sana's more focus on the emotions of the other person compared to Hailey, the INFJ might seem less dissociated because you're meeting them within that social context where the FE is being used. But there are those moments where, and what we typically hear about the INFJ, the IEI, is that they can do the FE thing, but they want to go away and like go into hermit mode and then do their NI thing. So
I'm very, very selective when it comes to who I use the FE on, like actively.
Right.
I'm passively receiving it, but I can also just kind of ignore it to some degree, depending on what it is.
So, Hailey, should I? Can you hear my fan in the background? Do I need to talk loud? Do you want to get some headphones? Should I be mentioning this? Probably not. This is all back down technical stuff.
It's fine. I don't hear anything.
Right. Yeah, I think Hailey's connection has changed a little bit. So what we will do is we'll get to the bullet points when she gets back. Oh, we'll look at we can go over what's this. This is something that a quote from Carl Jung, and these things should be thrown in the face of those people who rubbish typology theory and say, look, this is what he wrote. It just takes a lot of effort to constantly restate this. So she's back. So Hailey, this is what Carl Jung wrote about a type. And actually, what somebody did, there was a video out there which aimed to rubbish the MBTI. And what they did is they quoted this from Jung, but they only did this bit because every individual is an exception to the rule, whereas the full quote gives a different picture. So I'll read this out for people if they're on a mobile device. Although there are doubtless individuals whose type can be recognized at first glance, this is by no means always the case. As a rule, only careful observation and weighing of the evidence permits a sure classification. However, simple and clear the fundamental picture of the two opposing attitudes may be, so extroversion, introversion, in actual reality they are complicated and hard to make out because every individual is an exception to the rule. Right, so that's the position that we have. I mean, some people clearly resemble a type. Right, well, because Hailey's back, we might as well do the bullet points and then we can sort of go over a little bit of the background thing. I'll just do a little bit about how this will be interesting because of the different definitions of SI and pretty much how people use both. So we've got here right, I'm on screen. So sensation of discomfort. So treatment of a malady or resolution of everyday discomforts, such as is the minus SI of SEI, which is good at avoiding extremes. So this minimizing of discomfort, that matches up well with the Kersey ISFJ, who is the protector, and they're very good at taking care of people. So in various ways. So nursing, general practitioner, taking care of someone's belongings in their retirement, a very sort of overall protective attitude. So at least in Kersey, it's not just about housework, but in Socionics, it just tends to make SI very much about internal. And then once I've gone through this, I'll ask Sana what she thinks SI is, and then like her definition of it. from Socionics, which might be slightly different from Victor's school. For left spinners, so that would be the IEI, the NIFX, and my type pattern, TINX, LII, INTP. Sensation of comfort, adjusting the environment to make yourself as comfortable as you can, make your territory autonomous, such as is. Now that bit, make your territory autonomous, I think that sort of means like moving away from conflict. Sort of think about it. I think it sort of means that. I think that's sort of what it means. It's a bit vague. So Sana, what do you think SI is? Because you know quite a bit about socionics. How do you see it, and then how does classical socionics see SI?
Well, I don't see a huge difference in Model G. It's about the physical sensory aspects, and all of this is in that territory. Of course, it's not something that I've had a great deal of interest in, but I can't think of any specific differences based on this.
Do you think it's, whilst trying to stay true to the socionics definition of SI, I'm going to try and put it in a way that makes it more understandable, but I want to be true to the spirit of how they define it. And is it about the effect of the sensory experience on the inside of the person? So it's like the reaction to the sensations.
I would say it's the internal perception of those.
Right. Whereas, and how would you contrast that with the power sensor in socionics?
Oh, that's a good question. I have an internal idea, but I'm having trouble articulating it. I suppose I'm drawing a blank right now.
Okay, that's okay. It's a tricky thing. But
yeah,
I'll say what Carl Jung said about it.
I mean, you can go and describe them, but you specifically asked for the contrast, and that
yeah, and also when you said that, that made me think of some of the resources I have about where it goes into some of the definition of it, and I actually have here something from, and I think this is very good. This is from Anthony Stevens' book.
I think I'll just say this. I think the main difference to me, the way I understand them, is the difference between dynamic and static.
Right, go on.
Because I'm a very, I am a dynamic type. So I have a kind of an innate grasp of what it is for an IME to be dynamic. So I kind of view SI through that.
So folks, IME is a
information element.
Yeah, information metabolism element. Yeah.
Yep.
So I'll go through this and I'll give a little bit more because the Jungian kind of SI, some aspects of the original version, there is an overlap with the socionics version, and that's the subjective aspect of it. Mm-hmm. I mentioned Jungian roots because I read this in Jung, a very short introduction by the Jungian Anthony Stevens, who probably doesn't know about socionica. So this was like to show the connections. Whereas the extroverted sensation type, the SE DOMs, is guided by the intensity of objective influences, says Jung. The introverted type, so this is the SI DOMs, the introverted type is guided by the intensity of the subjective sensation excited by the objective stimulus. Emma Young, who considered herself to be of this type, so an SI DOM, described herself as being like a highly sensitized photographic plate. Every detail of a situation is noticed and can be recalled at will. Such people have vivid memories for sights, colors, passages in books, sounds, conversations, smells, tastes, tactile sensations, and so on. There's a bit here. The SI shadow in the NE dominant type is consistent with the socionic definition of SI. So, and this is from his little book, Shadow. So this is the shadow, the inferior, the manipulative, the suggestive function of the NE DOMs. Introverted sensation. The individual does have sensations, of course, but he is not guided by them as such. He uses them merely as starting points for his perceptions. However, he is often completely unaware of his sensations and, as a consequence, is prone not to notice when he is tired, cold, or hungry. When his introverted intuition does become active, it can cause him to misinterpret messages arriving from his own sense organs, with the result that he may become hypochondriacal, I assume it's pronounced like that, or indulge in fads about diet and exercise. So you can see how the Anthony Stevens, the way he wrote about SI, in a very Jungian sense, there's a big overlap there with Socionics SI. We're talking about the same things, but with that subjective aspect emphasized, the subjective reaction to it. It's sort of it's more subjective than the objective thing. So, by definition, so we've done that, and we're going to get to the bullet points. Yes, the bullet points. And by its very nature, SI is very hard to define. You have to sort of like, you would have to do an experiment where you gave some description of text and asked some SI DOMs about what they got out of it and what they imagined and things like that. And so to get an idea of just how much of their own experience that they sort of like read into a text, and how much of it is where it's just a starting point for their own imagined sensory experience when it's describing something on a I was going to say describing something on a descriptive level, on a sensory level. So, number one. So this one's for you, Hailey. Over time, I.L.Is work out specific routines and habits that help them stay comfortable and healthy.
I'd say yes.
Just a bit. That is your, what is it? Is the French phrase raison d'etre, right?
Is the French phrase what?
Raison d'etre, right? Because I know you.
I can't even recognize what it is that you're.
Raison d'etre.
Honey, raison d'etre.
Raison d'être, yeah.
Okay, apparently yes.
Right.
Sexual life's purpose.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So, how do you compare with that, Sana, number one?
I don't think I really work on routines. I do have some habits that I notice that I get into, but they're like more accidental, I guess. But to some degree, not to the same degree as Hailey.
So,
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say anything. It was just flim flam. It was.
Okay, well, one thing I have noticed is that I tend to focus oddly on the health of my teeth, and I really stress out. It's very funny. You're so funny. He's laughing at me over there. It's true. I do. I stress out about my teeth, and I have had many dreams of my teeth falling out, and it's really stressful. And so I find that I have to force myself in the evening to take extra time, like just to make sure I'm brushing really good. And there was a time in my life a few years ago where I feel like I really neglected my oral health, and I paid the price for it. I ended up having to go over to Mexico to get some cavities filled. It really sucked. But yeah, I was super stressed out about it after that. And after that point, it seems like I was just every day, I was just looking in the mirror at my teeth and, brushing like crazy. So I've really had certain things where I've had to focus on maintaining. But it has been a challenge because I find myself getting caught up with so many other things I want to do and I want to get done. And I just have to be like, okay, well, I can't just, go fall asleep. I realize I'm tired. I have to go and brush my teeth. And I know if I don't, I'm going to be sorry.
I remember when you told me about that, going to Mexico for that. I gave you parsimonious points for that.
Yep, and that's why I went. And they did a good job. But the thing is that you have to watch where you go. And the only reason I knew where to go was because, well, I would say that my dad is an INTJ, and he's also very parsimonious. And so we would often go to that particular place, that clinic in Mexico, a lot when I was younger. And so that's where I went.
Ah. What was that joke? What was that thing you used to say about if you used to leave the electric on too much, then electric light?
Oh, about having stock in General Electric?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he also told me that a fun thing to do would be to go out to bars and wait till everyone comes out in their drunken stupor at like 2 a.m. when they're kicked out, and just wait till they stumble over to their car, try and get their keys out of their pocket and drop their money on the ground, and just wait till they leave and walk around the parking lot and pick up all the 10s and 20s you find.
Oh, your dad really is.
I never did that, though.
With some questionable ethics as well. Well, he's probably saying, well, serve them all right then for being sinners. Or maybe thinking, hang on a minute, they shouldn't be driving anyway if they're stumbling out of a
Yeah,
bar.
I'm sure he didn't feel too bad about it.
Right. The business logic part of it as well. I like it.
Sorry.
That's okay. Number 2. There is a tendency to surround themselves with collections of favorite things and stock up on favorite food.
Favorite food, yes. The other thing, not so much, because I wouldn't consider myself a hoarder. However, the parsimonious thing makes me probably a little bit more of a hoarder than my husband. But I don't like collecting things for the heck of it. They have to have a purpose. But the food thing, the only reason I stock up on favorite food is because I really don't like having to go to the grocery store a lot. I really don't like it. And so I just get a whole bunch so I don't have to go back for a while.
Right, so if you see a good deal, you're going to take advantage of it, tuck in, but also look at those expiry dates.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Right, so what have we got here? Collections of favorite things. Number 3. When going out to the house or going on a trip, they take along certain minimalist supply of things to ensure that they will be comfortable traveling. And all of these things, when you read it, it's like, this is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, right, yeah. I think that's accurate, at least for me, just because not that I really go many places, but whenever I do, I'm imagining myself there thinking about, ah, crap, I forgot this, and man, this would be so nice to have. And it's really not, it doesn't equate to much stuff, but I'd rather have it and, you know, be comfortable than, you know, not bring it and wish I had it. So, and plus if you get there and you have to buy it and you're like, man, well, I have this at home, gosh, that would really tick me off.
Even if it was just like a few
Yeah, yeah.
a few euros. Right. Number 4. Try to keep things tidy and follow accepted practices for self-care, e.g. hand washing, sanitizing, keeping away from infections. This is a bit too personal.
No. The whole tidy thing, yes, but I will say that I have really, like, there's not a limit. There's like a point where my workspace has to be decently clean, but the thing is that I can get so busy working that a mess can generate, and it's not until like the next day where I go to start my work again, I'm like, oh man, let me clean up a little bit, this is a mess. As far as the second bit, following accepted practices for self-care, I haven't always been the best at this, and I've had to really try to get better at it as I've gotten older. As far as the whole, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, why do you think that you've not been the best at it? Is it because you've not noticed it, because you're in your head a lot, or not the energy for it?
All of those. Yeah. One time you said something along the lines of, I think you were talking about how NI-DOMs use their energy very selectively, and I definitely am like that. I don't like to expend any more energy than I need to, and I devote it to certain things that I want to do and get done. And it's along the lines of the whole oral care thing. I'm just like, oh man, I don't want to. I really don't, but I'm just like, man, I know I want my teeth in good health and I want them looking good, and yeah. So
I would say that in your case, you dedicate your energy to things that you care a lot about, that are ticking a lot of boxes in the productivity and relationship side. You're not going to be wasting time watching random videos on YouTube about tanks and planes like me. You're going to be very productive with your time in terms of and energy for those things. So you get a lot of done because you put things in the right order. Sana might spend her energy on the right people. So it might be a people focus. Is that fair to say, Sana, where it's like...
Yeah, I'm also SX first, so
right,
it's gonna show up. I don't know what you were talking about because I had to run, but
yeah, that's okay. I'll go back to I'll go through number 5, and then I'll go back to number 2 with you, Sana, because you also have, well, you don't have SI in this position, but the model of the type that you resemble does. Right.
nice.
Because, you know, people need to remember the difference between the map and the territory which is represented by the map. Right. So number 5. So this is for Hailey. However, they might get untidy when stressed or when being tidy takes too much effort. Have great appreciation for comfortable shoes.
Especially the last bit. You know, it's really funny because I have these certain pairs of heels that I think are just so cute, but they are hell. I sincerely don't understand. I mean, and maybe this is where I'm being too cheap and I just need to buy a good pair of heels, because I've never owned a pair of heels like over $50. I mean, that is really sad, but it's true. It's true. I never have. And maybe that's where it is. It's like the quality of the heel. It fits like...
I doubt it.
I genuinely don't understand how these women can wear these
heels are just evil.
I mean, I think they are so cute. I really do.
They are. I mean, that's why people wear them. But I mean, if you use them for long enough, your foot kind of gets used to it. But really, do you want to do that?
Yeah, but Sam, if you wore heels, you'd be about If you wore a 4-inch heel, you'd be quite
I have
tall.
worn, I have worn heels. I own heels, and I occasionally wear them, but not really the really tall ones.
It is amazing how, like, even the most parsimonious women, it's like they'll still have a thing for shoes.
It's not about the well, yeah, well, I mean, it's a look thing, you know.
Yeah.
If they are cute.
So when you said there, Hailey, about you've not bought one over 50, but I mean, but for any other item of clothing, you wouldn't spend as much as what you would spend on a shoe. And
Well, the thing is that you have to look at the use that you're going to get out of the item.
very TE. Go on.
Well, I mean, it's fair. I mean, I would never spend $50 on a flimsy little shirt I know is not going to last after 3 washes. That just doesn't make sense. And shoes, especially heels, I know I'm not going to wear them every day, so they're going to last me at least, like, I've had some of those heels in my closet now for like 5-6 years, and they still look really good because I've only worn them a few times. So, I mean, some of them don't look so good, and Babe can attest to that. They're like falling apart, but I love them so much, and I keep super gluing them back together. But
Yep.
yeah.
So that's a good example of the TE. And there was an answer that Hailey gave before early on that was a good example of the factorial word usage of NTs. And then when she gave an answer, and it was sort of like based on this definition, so you put in like all of these like factors and things in.
But the definition matters. I mean, what are we talking about?
Yep. That's one of the things of NTs. It's like, well, based on this particular premise and things like that, and this influence, get all of the factors involved, and then so I make a big thing of that, and then Sana will say, but Ben, you've just been sloppy again and run together 2 different typologies.
Just to interrupt, I gave the link to my friend, I.L.I friend, but I don't know if he's gonna join.
Okay. Well, we could do a hangout with him in future.
Yeah, I was just the timing is not in Europe, so.
Okay, fair enough. Right, so I'll go to number 2 with you then, Sana. There is a tendency. What about number 2? There is a tendency to surround yourself with a collection of your favorite things and stock up on favorite food. Is that correct, or is that?
I do that.
Oh.
Yeah. My favorite foods change, but I do that.
Oh. What about number 3?
But doesn't everyone do that?
Yeah, but I think like an SI dog might take like Mr. Clean, and that other guy might take like all the things that like they might necessary, and they might also take things that other people might need.
Okay, I don't do that. I take things that I need, and I always have a certain number of things with me. But
I can imagine people doing that for different reasons. Like they might take a lot of stuff, so they can like show to their friends, oh, I brought it along. Well, if you want to use it.
I don't do it for that. I do it because in case I need it, because there are things that I might need.
Yeah.
But they are fairly limited, and they will fit into my purse.
So if you think of number 3, so if say somebody is an II, so NIFX resembler, an NITX resembler, and say they also relate to Enneagram Type 6, or say if their instinct is self-preservation, they will do more of that thing in number 3, and so they might then have behavior that is more SI-ish, but it's not actually pulling from the SI, it's pulling from a different system that might get classified as that. So you can have these different behaviors that's due to a different type pattern resemblance. So I can give you an example. Laura Miller. She resembles logical, intuitive introvert, so TINX, INTP and Kersey. And because of her strong identification with Enneagram Type 6, and I think also maybe self-preservation as well, she has a lot of behaviors that look ISFJ-ish. And so if you want to So, folks, if you see the interaction styles hangout, in about the last 20 minutes, Carol is asking Laura questions to differentiate between ISFJ and an INTP Enneagram Type 6 that just has a lot of attention towards self-preservation. So the behaviors can look similar, but for different motivations. Is that fair to say, Sana?
Yeah.
It's also a benefit of learning the Enneagram. Yeah, sorry.
I think 6 in particular has much in common with SI.
Yeah.
Or at least is compatible with.
Yeah, I think part of it is there are a lot of themes in SI which are similar themes with Guardians, and Guardians are about safekeepers and security and being prepared, and the 6 is about being prepared. And a lot of people who would be categorized as an SJ also have like 6's qualities and self-preservation. So number 4 for you, try to keep things tidy and follow accepted practices for self-care. Hand washing, sanitizing, keeping away from infections. Is that for you, or
which one are you asking? Me?
number 4? Yeah.
No.
Oh, you don't do that?
No.
Uh-huh.
I mean, sure, if someone has a, sanitizing stuff, like a hospital, I'll use it,
Yeah.
but I don't really think about it too much.
So do you think, is it because of is it that particular bit about the particular method? Is that the bit that you particularly not?
I think I'm just not too worried about that kind of stuff.
Right.
Like I will, as far as I'm concerned, the basics are good enough for me.
Right.
And I don't really think about it any further.
Is that an example of where? So you know what TE break is. Would you sort of put that in the category of the things where my TE break shows?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Right. So you're an I.L.I resembler. You know what TE break is, and sometimes I'm looking for like what are examples of when somebody, relates to the TE break.
Oh, you think it's a combination? Yeah, it could be.
I mean, because it's that bit of the practices, the accepted practices of particular methods to do things.
I don't really have a problem with accepted practices. It's just that when it comes to this particular topic, like this is like what do you call it? Like health awareness. It's just something I don't really think about too much. It's not a huge concern for me. I consider myself okay, like I'm not in danger, I hope.
Right. So now, folks, you can get an example of what this position means in terms of the minimum energy. It's just enough to get by. It's just enough to get the job done. When it has to be done, the energy will rise to the occasion to get it done, but it's going to be draining.
Yeah, I think it's very much based on lack. Like when something's wrong or something's missing or something needs to be done, then you do it and then you move on.
Right. After I've gone through number 5, I'll ask you about this in terms of dimensions, because you're familiar with the dimensions in classical socionics. About this is I think it's a 2D function.
Yep.
Number 5. However, they might get untidy when stressed or when being tidy takes too much effort. Have great appreciation. So we separate that. What about that first sentence there, number 5, Sana?
Yeah, I can be very untidy. Depends on the area, but yeah, I can definitely Yeah. I'm trying to think of examples, but
Right.
for example, my my art corner is always messy, and it doesn't really bother me. And it's just how it is.
However, when your art though is very detailed, has lots of like good technical points
Mm-hmm.
in terms of somebody looking at your technique will go, that's good technique. Just from a technical skill ability. And I know it's a bit of a cliche, but if you show it on screen, then Hailey can react to it because she's a bit of an artist as well.
Same painting again.
The same one, yes. I am determined for a rich NF to buy this. I think they will.
Here's my NF bait again.
You just call that NF bait?
Yeah,
That's
I did.
brilliant. I think it's fair. That's absolutely fair.
Now, how about your husband, Hailey? Would he buy that?
Be honest, probably not.
He does have good modern art, though. Right. Yeah.
Well, it's because he asks me to show it every single time.
Yeah, this is about the third time. But I honestly do think. No, but I think the last time we'll do it is when we're in the Catherine event, on the Zoom event. All of those rich NFs that are paying $100 an hour for her advice.
Well, I appreciate your marketing efforts on my behalf.
Right. Okay, that's okay. Well, you know, I can have 10%. Right. So, what about that? And I think you mentioned a little bit about the shoes. Do you have an appreciation for comfortable shoes, or?
I think we just cursed heels a while ago, so
Yeah.
I suppose.
Okay. Yeah, but there's also non-type factors can come in where you can say, but Ben, I'm already 5'10". I don't need to wear.
I don't wear them for height.
Yeah. Ah. So what do you wear them for then? I mean, I have an idea.
It's just a
why,
look.
but,
Looks in general, like
Yeah.
they look nice.
Yeah.
Heels look nice when you're wearing them. They just don't feel necessarily very comfortable. So I don't mostly. Actually, if you have a little bit of heel, like 5 centimeters tops, then it can be very, very comfortable.
Ah. Is that because you're more on the balls of your feet?
Yeah, it kind of seems to balance it out somehow. Although it depends on what you do.
Right then. So let's see if there's anything else left here. So we did that one. Oh yeah, this is just to show, because we've done a little bit on the position, but just to show what it's like in the other types. So
Gosh, that stresses me out.
what is it not neat enough? What's wrong with it, Hailey?
It's just, I don't know where to look first. That's just, okay. If I had done this, I might have color coordinated it a bit different just to make it separate out clearer.
I would have used the SOCIONICS terminology.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring people into the fold.
Which is why you put different terminology in 3 of them, just to confuse them. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, but also, I also put in red, though, those that don't match.
Yeah, totally self-evident and not confusing at all.
Yeah, but better than he usually does his notes.
I thought that was very neat. I mean, and look at the bits where I've cut bits out and stuck them together again because I wanted them in the correct positions.
Okay.
So, yeah, but Hailey used to have a video on her channel where she like very sneakily she's doing all this artistic drawing with a cartoon version of yourself, like your hidden talent.
I wouldn't say talent, more, not at all. I really had to work at that.
Right. So anyway, so this is just to show that so it's FI role in case of TINX. In case of NETX, it's SE role, so they can like stand up for themselves, resist being controlled there. SE plus. Oh yeah, just another thing. That's one of the things where it lines up. We're talking of SE plus, ESFJ in Model G. Sorry, ESFP in Model G leads with F plus, power sensing plus, SE plus. And that's SE plus is about power sensing of resistance, not subordination. So that is more consistent with them in Berens being a say, get things going. They're not about being in charge. They're about maintaining their own freedom. So from a functional point of view, you can say, okay, yeah, I can see a difference in interaction style between ESFP and ESTP. Right. And then so you've got role function TE. Now, this is probably one of the strongest role functions of all the types. And the reason why I say that is because TE is very much work associated. So when an ESFJ resembler is at work, they're very much team players. So they want to get with the team mindset. So when an ESFJ is at work, what's the appropriate way to be? The appropriate way to be is TE. So they're going to train that function up so much at TE in ESFJ, whereas the other types probably not going to be in as many situations to train it up. So because of Hailey's interests, she's been training up SI more than, say, other INTJs resemblers. Is that fair to say, Hailey, that
yeah, if we say because of my interests.
Yeah.
It's been necessary.
Yeah. And so this is where the career has an aspect, or the interest, the role enactment we've got here. ISFJ, maybe if they were in a thing where, okay, do you know what I said about them as the role of the protector? Kurza gave the example of maybe if they were in the role of, say, protecting retirees' savings. So if they're in the mode of looking at the possible things that could go wrong in future, we used to, and also if they were a little bit E6-ish, they would be looking at pitfalls in the future. So an SIFX would also be using a lot of these intuition of time when they're in that particular role. So it's like the role demands certain function-related skills of them. Right, so any other examples? Right. ENFP. When they are the champion of their cause, when they are the social justice warrior, and they have to overcome resistance, they have to use their SE there to resist and go through obstacles. INFP. I don't know. When they're reading their philosophy books, they have to use a bit of TI. I don't know. I don't know how INFP is used.
Oh, that was embarrassing.
Well, what do you think then, Sandra, then? How do you think INFP is using TI?
I'm the wrong person to ask, because to me, TI applies to everything.
Huh.
Yeah, you know, that's something I don't quite understand. I mean, when I think of SI, I think of someone responding internally, like how an experience makes them feel. And yeah. when I heard you almost define it like SI is, like many people think of it as in this house cleaning, you know, it's like people think of SI and they're like, oh, well, someone who goes through and cleans their house because they have an internal experience that they need to be tidy. And I mean, I think of SI and I'm like, any experience, like how does any experience for an SI Dom, like, wouldn't it be tied to anything?
I agree. It's a very narrow definition.
Yeah.
If you just.
Yeah, I should have mentioned this before at the start, and especially when Sana brought up the issue of static and dynamic, and that is, it appears that because the SE ego types, the SE max types, the types with SE in the top in the like dominant or auxiliary functions, they're static. The dynamic sensing types, the ones with SI, either SI lead or SI auxiliary, they're dynamic. So, and I've asked Victor about this and other people, it does appear that their mood, the mood of the SI DOMs and the SI auxiliaries seems to be affected more by things around them. Their mood is more dynamic. So it's maybe the effect of that little bit of mess on them, the way it makes you feel, whereas For the SE types, it's like they can see it, they know all the qualities of it, but it's not affecting their mood as much. They're chill, they're static. Whereas
I don't know if it affects it. I mean, I think we would need to ask an SE ego type. I think that's. Also, when it comes to cleaning of stuff, I mean, if we have an SI lead whose sense of comfort does not depend on clean surroundings, then that person is not going to be a tidy person.
Right, yeah, like if their mood isn't affected by their dirty house.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. But I think that's part of it, though. I think that someone's mood and their internal sensory experience of it is, and also this is something that, again, that comes in from NLP. It depends how much they are a visually based person or a sound based person or a kinesthetic based person. So it might really get on their nerves if a chair isn't exactly the way they want it in terms of comfort, if they're more like kinesthetic, or just visually, if just like one little thing in the corner of a room isn't particularly straight, it has to be straightened. I
think we're past the SI probably into compulsive behaviors.
Yeah, but it gets a little bit like that when it's, in fact, Victor actually wrote that on his table, like when it becomes accentuated, like you put like OCD and stuff, and like when he did it for NE, he put ADHD. So, and you're probably thinking, yes, Ben, I can believe that. Right. Now, well, when I said this about, I'm curious, when I said this about TI and INFP, you said, I think that's embarrassing. Was it embarrassing what I said?
No. It's just that it's such a cliche that FI leads would be, or especially EII would be into, would be spending all their time on that kind of stuff.
What, philosophy and things like that?
Yeah, that was the embarrassing part. It's like, I'm sure they have actual, daily needs.
Yeah, things that they have to do. But in terms of what they prefer, what I would think is, I would see it as they have a lot of morals, and they want to clarify them, and they want to integrate them into a system, and they are interested in these intellectual, and they're drawn to philosophy because of all of its things that relate to, morality and other things and the purpose of life. And
well, socionics is very TI.
Yeah, but lots of people can get into it for different reasons. It's like as a means to an end. Like for the LIIs, they can be interested in the structure in itself, and sometimes you might be thinking that with me. Whereas other types, it's like they learn that as a tool in order to learn more about people, and it depends what the emphasis is on. So you can have lots of. It's an LII system, an INTP system, but lots of other types, especially the INF types, and even MBTI ISFP. And anyway, sorry. Any more? Okay, so here's one. Oh, right. This is where temperament comes in. In fact, this is a good example. So ENTJ and the STJ both have FE in their role function of the model of them, but the STJ is a guardian. They are of society more, and 45% of people are guardians. So they when they're doing the FE thing, they are going to be around more people who are similar to them. So it's easier for them to do the FE thing than it is for ENTJ to do the FE thing. Because the ENTJ is not going to be around as many like-minded people. And also, ENTJ is not a guardian. Now, the physical evidence for this is there's a region behind the left ear that Dario that mentions called region T5. And it gets very active when somebody looks at somebody's... It's almost like a physical manifestation of an FE detector. And Rachel told me who has a 10-year-old boy at the time, that if the young boy saw a certain expression on her face, say a negative expression, and it had nothing to do with him, it would make him feel really bad. So it's like it's an objective reading of emotions. And Dario said that this is what the SJs have, where they see an expression on someone's face and it will make them feel a certain way, irrespective of whether they have anything to do with it at all. So, and that's going to be a difference there between ESTJ and ENTJ that goes outside of just this functional model. And so I would say that's one of the benefits of thinking about temperament and also Enneagram. You could also say, and Catherine might say, what if someone's an ESTJ and they are a well-developed 8 that's looking to be very protective? They would have maybe stronger FE than a less well-developed ESTJ 8. So, oh yeah, I should have done it. I should have shown it like this. It's a bit silly of me that there you can see that they both have the FE in the role position. Theoretically, ENTJs are meant to be more charismatic, but that's based on the model and the fact that it's got FE plus there and FE minus. So a little bit deterministic there from Victor. Right. So, anything else? SI, NiTe. Oh yeah.
Do you think the ENTJ is more inclined to use FE, like TEFE, for getting things done and business-wise and thinking, well, how can I influence this person to get what I want? I mean, that sounds really bad, but...
Yeah, yep. Someone described NLP as finishing school for NTJs, or even finishing school for ENTJs. Yeah, because a lot of it is like, especially if they've got a lot of 3 in them, Enneagram type 3, you know, like Del Boy, it's like really trying to make a strong impression on people. And it's just that Del Boy has chosen to like sell a load of crap and try and be successful that way. But, and I think Alan Sugar, who really is an ENTJ, Del Boy said if he didn't sell such rubbish, he would have ended up as Alan Sugar. All right. Anyway, if you want to see more about Derek Trotter, see our reviews, my reviews with Hailey on Only Fools and Horses. So, role function. Jess says he can do the anything when he gets tired, that he can get goofy.
So, are we going to go back to SI?
Yes, we were discussing the position. Yes, that's that done. She always keeps me on track. Oh yeah, here's a bit about what Victor said about SI in relation to Dario, so we can finish. That'll be near the end. So I'll let you read through that. I'll move it down when commanded.
Well, I'm done. Are we just going to sit here and read it, or?
Yep. Do you want to?
I'm good.
Right, I've just moved it up now for this new bit.
Yeah, we're talking about the memory stuff again. I'm not a fan of it, but...
Well, at least you can get Victor's. These are Victor's actual thoughts.
The thing is, I think memory is just a universal human thing. It shouldn't be specific to SI because everybody's going to have memory that works in association with their particular cognitive type.
And in fact, we could do a video on this in the future. It's like there's different kinds. And I think Victor actually mentioned for the LII resembler, they remember things by fitting it into a schema. That's certainly what I do. It's just that the SI kind is just going to be because it's more visual and it's going to be like that loci thing. You know, the trick that the Greeks used to use for memorizing a story because I've got the mental.
But I also have a very visual memory. Like I will remember where in a book, on a page, I read something, even if I don't remember what the thing was. So I know where to go and find it.
Yep. Well, that's part of the overall Galenko temperament, and it's also probably to do with development as well, because of your interest in art and just developing the skill related with that function. So have you read all that?
Yep.
Right, then we go over here. We don't need to go over the TI. We did that in the previous one. Yeah, so ESE is ESFJ and LSE is ESTJ.
Okay.
Right, so, and then we did that. Oh, here are some skills. So these are just, I like these 7 kinds of intelligence. And then naturalist was just added on the end. So they're just interesting: linguistic, logico-mathematical, visuospatial, bodily kinesthetic, musical, interpersonal, intrapersonal. Right. But you can also, and we will talk about this in future in the next hangout when we talk about FI, but also about rapport and how rapport is can be based around many things, including values, if not just shared interests. These are the non-type factors. I remember it as the Ibru Kiki: individual, social status, biology, relationships, upbringing, culture, education, career, events. We did that one, we did that one. This was my attempt to integrate MBTI SI and Socionics SI. The actual thing about the comfort zone might have something to it. So the actual concept of the comfort zone. The comfort zone is a psychological state in which a person feels familiar, at ease, in control, and experiences low anxiety. A person in this state uses a limited set of behaviors to deliver a steady level of performance, usually without a sense of risk. Sana, do you think there's a relationship between Socionics SI and that?
Yeah, I think Socionics SI seeks this kind of comfort a lot, at least based on the SI valuing people I know, like my father.
So with you two, do you see this as almost stagnating, that you want to get brought out of this mode?
I don't.
Oh, so you like this, Hailey, this kind of mode?
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily want to be jerked out into, some sort of spontaneous something with someone I don't know.
It's going to depend. For example, my father is not very good at producing this, so most of his life isn't like this. But I can see that they look for it.
I'm interested in this because so Hailey said there that she likes being in the comfort zone. So what's the relationship between that though, and then the extroverted power sensing thing, where it's almost like taking somebody out of their comfort zone?
SE doesn't think about that in the moment. When you're in the moment, you just go with it. You're not going to be thinking about comfort or anything SI related.
Because I think to an SE Dom, a comfort zone would be a negative phrase.
I think an SE lead would just not think about it. It's just in the an area that they have a lot of conscious interest in.
Yeah. Right then. So we've done other hangouts on the S. I was trying to get some kind of integration in terms of how to oppose them, where NI is about change, well, about development, and this SI is about the comfort zone and like staying the same. So you can see how they are opposed. So this is a very TI approach of like defining the function by saying, well, if they're supposed to be opposites of each other, and we're pretty confident in the definition of this function, then what is the opposite of this function? So for example, we're pretty confident that NI is about development. So then we say, okay, what's the opposite of development? Stabilizing, being stuck in a comfort zone and not moving on. So this is just a little bit of a TI justification of.
I have a little bit of a question though. As far as this little bit you have penned out in blue here, the SI comfort zone. Is this specifically like to define SI, or is this like a comfort zone is whatever any type considers to be the comfort zone?
Yeah, because I was just wondering I was trying to investigate SI, and I was thinking about this phrase, and I was trying to make the connection between the way MBTI and Kersey sees it, although Kersey didn't have functions, but the way he described guardians and what they like. Guardians like to be in their comfort zone. And then I was looking at, and it's not just because it's got comfort in the title, and then the way Socionics defines SI as comfort sensing, it doesn't put all that stuff in about by the book and all of that. But what I'm saying is, but this might show, yes, but going by the book leads to low anxiety because you've got something that, and if you take a slow pace, you go by the book, you're not going to be putting yourself in a lot of challenging situations. And SI doesn't like challenging situations. It likes to relax, a slow, comfortable pace of doing something. So I was like trying to integrate them. And we did 3 hangouts with Dario Nardi on this because Dario and Victor define SI differently. And I was trying to look for the commonalities. And this was the best I could come up with.
This one also has a lot to do with 6. This particular example.
Right.
So it would be interesting to find out how an SI lead that does not have 6 in a tri-type.
Good point. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy that and I'll put that in the slides for tonight when we're going to do the hangout on the E4, E6. Put that in there. Right, so we've done lots of hangouts on SI. Now, I'll just say a quick thing about now the actual behavior of SJs. You don't want to pin too much on a particular function. So all of the SJs, so the STJs, as well as having SI in their maximum energy or in their top 2. So the SJs are, so if you're an SI DOM, your auxiliary function is either going to be FE or TE. And if it's TE, then it's going to be towards work, it's going to get stuff done, it's going to be organized, externally organized. And so you're going to see the real Janus there. And so if you've got a combination of somebody who wants a slow, comfortable pace and they don't want to have a lot of stress and they want to do the same thing all the while, so they can have a calm inner state combined with the TE, that's one thing. And then when you've got the SI combined with the FE, where it's towards other people and it's a calm state and it's a very alpha quadra values with the harmony and no stress, no dramatic emotions like Sana's beta quadra. So you can see how it can fit in there. And then I would also say that the lower level NE is a thing for SJs, and Kersey noticed it in their speech, where he wrote their word usage is orthodox, their reference is quantitative, and because on a concrete level, you can see the quantities of things and you can see the qualities of things. And he said that the sequence was associative. So for the SJs, it's like things will remind them of other things, but it's on a concrete level. Whereas with the NPs, concepts remind us of other concepts. So we're still doing the same sequence, associative, but it's on a different level. And then another thing that is that SJs also love a generalization. So what do the STJs love? They love standard operating procedure, which is a generalization of how you do things. What do the SFJs like? Manners, which are standards about how to act in certain situations. So again, it's a generalization across situations. So that is how I think NE operates in the SJs. And so the SJness is a combination of the SI with NE and then TE or FE. Now, does that make sense?
The parts that I remember, yeah.
You did that zoning out thing. You had an
I did that thing, yeah.
Yeah, probably because I have heard Ben say this multiple times.
Ben's talking. I'll zone out.
Yeah. Right. This is something. This is a thing where I'm comparing the NTJs with the STJs when it comes to business. Where the
I think this picture is going to drive all I.L.I's nuts.
Well, all of them. So you and I.
I'm comfortable making a claim like that.
So is this driving you nuts, Hailey, or are you digging the economics?
I'm just saying it's super confusing and messy.
Well, I mean, it's about the time preference thing, where the INTJs, they have this, but it's like the level of the interest rates will really affect your ability to how far your plans can go forward into the future before you make a profit, because you've got to pay back all these loans before you actually make a profit. And so the lower the interest rates are, the more projects you'll take up where the payday is further into the future. But when it's further into the future, the business plan is more tenuous. So it mucks up. So it mucks up the intuition of time of the NTJs. Because the interest rate is a price signal that needs to be determined not by the government, but by the actual supply of real savings that represents the real supply of resources available. So it's a very TI thing, but people can take that. And what I'm saying here is the SJs, they don't want to do that. They just want to do a boring business that's very safe. More comfortable, routinely. Uncertainty makes them uneasy. NTJs, such as Hailey might say, a lot of what they do is treading water. One reason they are less ambitious is that more ambitious equals less likely to be achieved. And this actually comes from Victor's TE minus for ESTJ, TE plus for ENTJ. So, I mean, if you think of an STJ business would be Walmart. In fact, yeah. So they're uneasy about it. But again, their imaginations of the NTJs, they run away with them when interest rates are too low. That's how, and so people can take that in. I don't want to talk too much about it because that's a lecture to itself.
I can't follow where you're going because I have no idea what this
yeah,
I'm not following, basically.
Okay, fair enough. It's a complicated subject. I've been trying to vote people into economics hangouts. So this is an overview of classical socionics. So you've got there the elements that Sana mentioned, the functions. What Victor does is he renamed these the positions and he renamed the elements the functions. This is very much.
So that's just double confusing.
Yeah, but most people in socionics will call these elements and these the positions functions. I mean, it's doubly confusing calling the thing the function, calling the position the function when Jung called the and then
that's why I said it was double confusing. Because it was confusing with socionics, and now it's even more confusing with Model G.
Yeah, but it goes back to the original, though, by calling a function, and it says it's a position in the model. And when I saw that, I went, yes, he's called it the position.
Yeah, well, for someone coming from socionics, it's confusing.
Yeah. So and then we've got all 16.
To be honest.
So the Socion is all 16 types. The Jungian dichotomy is there. Notice how extroversion is spelt properly with an A. Reinian dichotomy is
Actually not on every page. If you just go through them.
Yeah, that annoys me. That does. I almost left. I made a little ratty comment there. Are there any socionics websites out there that spell extroversion properly?
You know what this is? Back.
Pardon?
Back.
Right. Yeah, because Tan always wants me to be precise with these socionics, so as not to run together various systems with my transcontextual thinking.
And be precise with your terminology as well.
Yeah. I don't like how, I mean, some of them, sometimes they call business social assignments. And I'm like, no, people know it in socionics as benefit. So that I changed temperament to mindsets because I don't want people confused with the Kersey temperaments. And I rejigged this because they put the big letter there. And that's not right. If it's in socionics, you've got to use the little letter. Especially when it's IJ and IP. I little p and I little j.
Why can't you be this precise with all of it?
Well, because I can't be bothered. Right, and then these are the shadow functions in the Beebe model. And so you've got there. So control function is the opposing personality. The witch Senex is what we did last time. Trickster is for the FE break. Demon Damon is for the role function. Oh yeah, and so this will be the climax. Hailey has read my play. These are some of the lines in it. She gave me a good review. It's linked above. I don't know what you... this line does quite well. I mean, was that... Oh yeah. The Itachi magic wand, muscle massager, puts the R in Itachi. I could sell that line to them. Right. And then this is what Carol says about type patterns. I think this is good. This is when I suggested that there should be types rather than patterns. And then I looked in Linda Burns' books, and it's like, she's called them that anyway. It's like Daria, they say type pattern. Because when you hear type, it is like box to put somebody in.
Well, it's not necessarily. It just depends on how you view it.
Yeah, but it's like if you use that, it gives people ammunition to use against typology. When we say something like that.
True, but I think it for granted that it's that they are just pattern stereotypes and so forth. So it's kind of weird that it has to be pointed out and that you have to come up with all these different labels to describe the system or the type to avoid it.
Well, for you, I think for me though, even if I just use a different word, if I think using the word type and I think versus using the word pattern, it's a completely different mental framework for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I get rigid when I think of the word type.
Okay. Yeah, for me, it's just it's not rigid at all. I mean, it can be depending on the context. Yeah. But if we're talking about 16 types, then it's not going to be rigid.
Yeah. Because I always might want to try and get distance from it. Oh yeah, this is just stuff. This is the real climax, which is, I don't think people realize how I've organized things. There's a little feature in this where a lot of people don't realize is if they click on this line here, it actually opens up a whole host of playlists. Although they can press this little thing here, it doesn't then show all of them. It just shows, say, another lot of 5. So if you clicked on Kersey role variants there, this line, then you would get there, expands. Well, that's clicking on something else, but say the top one. Then you get the all, and this is a whole, and these are not separate videos. These are playlists in themselves. This is a shelf of playlists. And then here is another shelf of playlists. And this is the SOCIONICS. If you click on the SOCIONICS shelf, then you get all of these. All of those. This is the one for, and these are the types. And like I said, if you'd have clicked on that little arrow, you'd have got 5 more, but you wouldn't have got all of them. So you have all the types there. NTs first, then NFs, then SPs, and then and then the types that do not correspond, like such as SL and RS. And then we've got the functions there. And then this one is, and this is the Enneagram shelf. There we go. And then this is, if you click on the A to Z of guests, you'll see all of the guests there. All of them. Because if you just click on, if you went to the A to Z of guests, for example, and you clicked on this little arrow, all you would see is another 5. Now, I think that's because when they designed it, they probably didn't think that someone would do it the way I do it. Like, have playlist upon playlist upon playlist in order to organize 600 videos. And then,
yeah, I think you broke the system.
Yeah. And also, people can use the search feature. Right, I think that is it. So I'll close that and I'll ask my guests. So, links in the video. Was this Hangout of any use?
Sure, the usual. Talking about typology.
You're very parsimonious with your time. Was it of any use?
Yeah, it was interesting. I always pick up on little nuggets here and there that I didn't realize or had never heard of.
So that's high praise, folks. So I'm an INTJ resemblance. So it's goodbye from me.
Bye.
Bye from Hailey.
Bye.
And bye from Sana. I'm going to press stop.